ending violence against children, the Sri Lanka's pledges to action. In this session, we are going to cover some important topics, including ending violence against children, Sri Lanka's legal and policy pledges, the lifelong impact of violence from childhood corporal punishment to adolescent mental health, creating safe schools, implementing the ban on corporal punishment, and promoting positive disciplines, building a continuum of case management and child-sensitive services for survivors, and investing in protection, which will discuss on child protection and gender budgeting in Sri Lanka. And we have the most suitable list of panelists to take these into a next level, which include Ms. Ayesha Jinasena, the President's Council Secretary, Ministry of Justice, Ms. K.D. Olga, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, Mr. Suhada Gamlat, President's Council, National Authority for the Protection of Victims of Crime and Witness, Professor Muru Chandadasa, Department of Psychiatry, Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya, Mrs. Preetika Sakalasurya, Attorney at Law, Director Legal, National Child Protection Authority, Ms. Tiona Aslanashvilai, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF, Mr. Sudarshana De Silva, Director, National Budget Department, Ministry of Finance, and Mrs. Gayani Vijay Singha, National Commissioner of Department of Probation, Mrs. Chandima Ratnayaka, Deputy Director of Education, Co-Curricular Branch of Ministry of Education, Higher Education, and Vocational Education. To guide this panel discussion, let's welcome on stage the moderators for the panel discussion, Mr. Mihilar Muhammad Abdul Malik from Child Protection Officer, UNICEF Sri Lanka, and Mrs. Buddhini Vitana, the Senior Technical Advisor, Child Protection, Save the Children Sri Lanka. Let's welcome them on stage.
Madam, we will call one by one, yeah, with your, sorry. Just it, yeah. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Okay, that's now. We can start now. Okay, so it's my pleasure to warmly welcome you all to this important session. Panel discussion on Sri Lanka pledges on violence against children, from commitment to action. As we gather here today, I believe we will share common understanding. What we need now is more than just promises, we need action. And the action is more urgent than ever. You all aware, violence against children remains a global challenge, and Sri Lanka is no exception on this. According to the 2024 data, NCPA Child Helpline received over 8,000 complaints, while approximately 6,500 cases were reported to the police. Again, more than 9,000 children in child care institutions separating from their father and mother and their family life. These figures are deeply troubling and represent more than just number. They reflect painful and heartbreaking stories of children. We heard so much of stories yesterday from different countries. Sri Lanka also not exception on these stories. Importantly, these statistics likely represent only the tip of the iceberg, as many incidents still go unreported due to fear, stigma, lack of access to the support service. I want to really remind you all the yesterday's statement from the Madam Secretary, Ministry of Justice. Last 10 years, we are speaking about the same challenges. So there's no changes on the context. So we need action, we need changes, we need collaboration and the partnership. Partnership is the power. So with that note, in mind, the objective of the today panel discussion, the first thing, the current challenges of Sri Lanka facing violence against children. We heard so much on the government pledges, so we'll go through the government pledges, what is really mean by for that. Then again, progress made so far after we signed the commitment in Bogota. So with that note, before I proceeding into our panelists to come to the stage, today's session will be facilitated by me and Buddhini. I am really privileged to have Buddhini facilitated this session with me. As you all know, one of the experienced and technical person in the child protection section with the child protection vision. So I'm really happy to have you with us. With that note, so we'll begin the panel discussion now. We will invite each of the distinguished panelists to the stage. I will call the names and briefly introduce their professional background. Buddhini, over to you.
Thank you, Mihila. I think you can hear me. First of all, we'd like to warmly welcome to the stage Madam Secretary Ayesha Jinasena, Secretary of the Ministry of Justice. Madam Ayesha Jinasena is an experienced legal professional and public servant for over 32 years with postgraduate qualifications and an unblemished professional career and personal character. She retired from the public service as the Solicitor General of Sri Lanka, and she currently holds the position of Secretary of the Ministry of Justice and National Integration. She's specialized in conducting criminal prosecutions in the High Court and the Magistrates Court and handling criminal appeals in the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. Experienced in advising the police and other law enforcement authorities in the conduct of criminal investigations into complex crimes, she possesses exceptional skills in communicating, experienced in lecturing, and extremely familiar with the administration of justice and judicial functions of Sri Lanka. I warmly welcome Madam Secretary to the panel.
So second panelist, I warmly welcome Madam Secretary KDR Olga, Secretary to the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs.
Yeah,
Mrs. Olga is the Secretary to the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs. Before assuming the duty as the Secretary to the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, she was the Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment of Sri Lanka. Previously, she held the post of Secretary to the Ministry of Energy Sri Lanka from August 2022 to April 2022, until she has been appointed as the Secretary to the Ministry of Energy Sri Lanka in August. Ms. K.D. Olga has different senior positions in General Treasury of Sri Lanka, including as the Director General, Department of Treasury Operation and Director General of Department of State Accounts. Kindly invite Madam to the stage.
Next, we'd like to warmly welcome Mr. Suhada Gamlat, President's Council, Chairperson of the Authority for the Protection of Victims and Witnesses of Crime. Mr. Gamlat is a distinguished Sri Lankan legal professional who has played a key role in strengthening justice systems, including his current leadership as Chairman of the National Authority for the Protection of Victims and Witnesses of Crime. He served as the 44th Solicitor General of Sri Lanka and served as the Secretary to the Ministry of Justice and Law Reforms, contributing significantly to legal policy and reform. Mr. Gamlat has been a strong advocate for child protection in drafting legislation to protect children who are victims or witnesses of crime. We warmly welcome Mr. Suhada Gamlat to the stage.
Next, my privilege to welcome Ms. Tiona Aslaswili, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF Sri Lanka. Ms. Tiona has been serving as the Child Protection with UNICEF Sri Lanka since July 2024. She brings 18 years of professional experience in a range of child protection issues: violence, alternative care, legislative reform, access to justice, social service workforce strengthening, child protection system strengthening, mental health, migration and displacement programming. Prior to joining UNICEF Sri Lanka, Ms. Tiona was heading UNICEF large-scale emergency child protection program for the Ukraine refugees in Slovakia. Between 2019 and 2022, she served as a UNICEF regional child protection specialist in Middle East and North Africa region, and as the child protection specialist with UNICEF in Myanmar and Georgia. Ms. Tiona holds 2 master's degrees in human rights and in psychology. With my note, I may say the person behind all the development of all these pledges, what we are discussing for the last 3 years. I want to report that one. So welcome, Ms. Tiona, to the stage. Then my privilege to introduce Professor Muyuri Chandradasa. Muyuri Chandradasa is a professor in psychiatry, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and the head of the Department of Psychiatry, University of Kelaniya. He has published 113 peer-reviewed journal articles, including 83 Scopus Index publications over the last decade. He was previously a senior lecturer at Monash University in Australia and the president of the Sri Lanka College of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists. Professor, welcome to the stage. Thank you. Then Ms. Gayani Kausalya Vijayasinghe, National Commissioner, Department of Probation and Child Care Services. The Commissioner of Probation and Child Care Services at the central government with extensive experience in child rights and welfare. Ms. Gayani Kausalya leads nationwide efforts to protect vulnerable children, develop policies, and ensure the implementation of the child protection initiatives across all the levels. A dedicated advocate for the children's rights, Ms. Gayani Kausalya oversees strategic planning, staff training, and resource coordination to uphold and promote the welfare and development of the children in need. So she is one of the driving force of the rollout of all these pledges what we have discussed today. We welcome you to the stage, madam.
Now I'd like to call upon Ms. Preetika Sakalasurya, the Director of the Legal Unit of the National Child Protection Authority. Ms. Preetika Sakalasurya, attorney at law, currently serves as the Director Legal and Head of the Legal Division at the NCPA. With a background in law and extensive experience in child protection and legal advocacy, she plays a key role in overseeing legal matters related to child rights and abuse cases. Mrs. Sakalasurya is also the designated Right to Information Officer at the NCPA, contributing to transparency and accountability within the institution. Welcome to the panel, Ms. Sakalasurya.
Then my privilege to introduce Mr. Sudarsana De Silva, Director, National Budget Department, Ministry of Finance. K. Sudarsana De Silva brings over 15 years of hand experience in public financial management, budgeting reforms, and government in Sri Lanka. As a Director of the Department of National Budget at the General Treasury, he leads a team responsible for shaping and monitoring the national budget, while also supporting parliamentary oversight bodies like COPE and COPA to strengthen the financial accountability. Sudarshana has been at the forefront of introducing results-based and performance-oriented budgeting and developing governance framework for the state-owned enterprises. Thank you, thank you, sir, for coming to the stage. Yeah, thank you very much.
Now I'd like to call upon Ms. Chandima Ratnayaka, Deputy Director of Education from the Co-Curricular Branch, Ministry of Education, Higher Education and Vocational Education. Ms. Chandima has been the Deputy Director of Education with 7 years of experience in guidance, counseling, career guidance, and over 20 years in the Sri Lankan education system. She's proficient in policy development, teacher training, and program coordination with collaborations including UNICEF, ILO, and GEMP. She holds advanced degrees in psychology and counseling with a strong focus on student support and teacher development. Welcome to the panel, Ms. Chandima.
Thanks for all the panelists. I'm a little bit stressed today because with all these eminent panelists, the technical resource of the country. So I think it should be the very productive discussion today. With that note, I'll little bit explain the today proceedings. So we will ask the question to the panelists based on the 4 pledges confirmed by the Sri Lanka, committed by the Sri Lanka government in the Bogota 2024. We will give a 5 minutes. The 4 minutes will give some sort of a sign, okay, you are reaching the 4 minutes to finish it off within a 5 minutes time, period of time. Then after that, we will open for the interaction with the audience, around 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Yeah. They will also can ask the question directly with the panelist. So with that note, to begin our panel discussion, I would like to direct the first question to the Secretary, Madam of Ministry of Women and Child Affairs. Over the past 6 months, we have seen significant momentum, discussion, and action following the pledges at the Interministerial Conference in Bogota. There's so much of talks last 2 days, mainly on these pledges. Could you please outline the 4 pledges made by Sri Lanka and explain how these were identified as a priority for the country? Then the second question, as the lead ministry and custodian of the 2 pledges, what key steps have been taken by your ministry to roll out that? Over to you, Madam.
Thank you very much. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our government regarding the pledges made at the Bogota conference in November 2024. Sri Lanka committed to 4 key pledges. First, creating safe and supportive schools. This pledge focuses on revising the 2016 circular banning corporal punishment in schools and implementing nationwide teacher training on positive discipline and school-based violence prevention. Second, establishing survivor support services. Recognizing the urgent need for effective response mechanism for victims of violence, this pledge includes the implementation of a model continuum of survivors in 1 province by the end of 2025 with a national rollout plan by the end of 2027. Third, empowering the school services workforce. This pledge aims to strengthen the capacity of social workers by 2026 through role clarification, comprehensive training for frontline staff on violence response, and integration into government HR planning. 4, advancing legal reforms. This pledge commits to completing the legislative process to ban corporal punishment in all settings by mid-2025. An implementation plan, including costed actions for each responsive stakeholder, will be developed by the end of 2025. Actually, these pledges were identified as national priorities through a consultative process initiated in 2024 with technical support from UNICEF. In addition, according to the new government national policy framework, safe environment for all children is one of the key commitments made by government. We need to take action in accordance with also UN child right UN Convention on the Right of Child. With these, 3 national preparatory sessions were held with key stakeholders, including government agencies, civil society organizations, NGOs and INGOs, and children themselves. The final pledges reflect the urgent concern raised during these inclusive consultations with children voices playing a central role. In response to your second question, key steps taken by the lead ministry. As the lead ministry, the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs is coordinating all 4 pledges with direct responsibility for 2 pledges. One, establishing survivor support services and empowering the social services workforce. Overall coordination by the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs. One is a multi-sectoral coordination mechanism for violence against children. Programming is being established among key ministries. One of the key initiatives taken by the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs is recently we got the cabinet approval for the formulation of multi-sectoral mechanism to prevent violence against children. And it will be the essential step towards rolling out the pledges. Second, the direct responsibility with the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs. Second pledge is empowering the social service workforce. A series of consultative workshops held in February 2025 and also recently on also there was a workshop 2025 brought together stakeholders to define the roles of child protection officers. A committee is being appointed to assess the roles and responsibilities of child right promotion officers, probation officers. There are mainly 3 number of officers in the field to do works on safeguarding the child rights. One is child right promotion officer, probation officers, and NCPA child protection officers. The committee's recommendation will enhance coordination and effectiveness. Then establishing survivor support services. With regard to that, all consultation and planning have been completed. Model child-friendly continuum services will be launched in Kandy by mid-September this year, with expansion to the northern and eastern provinces by the end of the year in partnership with UNICEF. In addition, on 23rd June, there was a South Asia Ministerial Information Sharing Meeting via Zoom, of which we also participated positively. With that, we have shared other countries' commitment and way forward on their pledges committed by the other countries. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much for the 4 pledges and the background, how you ended up with these 4 pledges. So I again repeated the pledges: creating a safe and supportive schools, establishing survivor support services, empowering the social service workforce, advancing the legal reform. So it's series of consultation with all the stakeholder, government partners, CSOs, including the children. With that, we derive to the pledges. This is priority for action now. So then again, am I thankful that within the 8 months of these pledges, compared to the other things, the level of progress with your leadership and the coordination already happening in the country. For that, my sincere congratulations. We also part of that. With that note, I'll give it to the Buddhini for the second question.
Thanks, Mihila. Madam Secretary, Ministry of Justice, I'm going to turn to you, and I'm going to focus on the last pledge about advancing legal reforms. So, as we know, a few years ago, the NCPA made significant legislative recommendations to ban corporal punishment. And also a special presidential committee on child protection was appointed, which also enabled these recommendations to be forwarded to the cabinet for approval. Now, the current government has also taken these proposals forward, and now the bill has been gazetted. I mean, considering the long process that has been followed and the time taken for all these steps to be taken, could you kindly elaborate on the next steps of the government, which will take this law, hopefully, to be passed? So what we really want to know from you, madam, is that how long do you think it will take for this bill to be enacted, to be placed on the order paper of the parliamentary agenda? Do you foresee any challenges, especially in this, considering the time frame that we have for this pledge? And also, once enacted, how do you think the relevant government ministries will ensure its effective implementation? Thank you.
Thank you, Buddhini, for
Yeah.
those questions. I think it's very timely, Milal, as you said. The commitment we'll have to put into action. So, as Buddhini very correctly said, that this bill was gazetted on the 8th of July this month. What is the next step? Next step is to place it in the order paper. The minister will have to move the leader of the house to place it in the order paper. The provisions in the constitution and the standing orders will apply in this respect. So within a month, we intend to get it placed in the order paper. Buddhini, thereafter, what are the challenges in it becoming a law? As I said, the procedures will have to take place. After it is being placed in the order paper, we cannot get it for the second reading for until the 14th day. Why? That is because it's opened for the public to challenge it. So if they challenge, the sole authority, the jurisdiction to hear that case rests with the Supreme Court of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Thereafter, when the arguments are taken up, the judgment, the findings of the Supreme Court should be communicated to the Speaker within 3 weeks. So if at all the bill is to be challenged by anyone, you will see initially we are giving 2 weeks, a fortnight, and then there will be 3 weeks. So tentatively, if you calculate, it's 5. In the meantime, if there are any amendments to be made, so at a committee stage, those amendments can be made, but if the Supreme Court decides that certain provisions are in violation of the Constitution, in that event, what do? We will have to take that on board and we have to get back to the legal draftman. Legal draftman then will draft the law, that is those amendments separately, and then we'll submit it. And thereafter, we have to send once again that amended law, amended provisions to the Attorney General to get his opinion in terms of the Constitution of its constitutionality. Once the COC is given by the Attorney General, then the procedure will again start. So once you clear all that, we can submit it for the second reading. So after the second reading, then it will be the third reading. If there are no issues, then it will be submitted once it is passed, of course, it will be submitted for the certification of the Speaker, where it becomes law. Then you also asked me another third question.
Yes.
That is, once it's enacted, how we are going to deal with it. Yes, as I said yesterday also, this journey, the Ministry of Justice cannot go alone. We have the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs. We have the Ministry of Education. Not only that, now the executive, except the executive, that there is this other stakeholders. Daily we hear that children, notwithstanding the current laws in place, that they are being punished in schools. The parents punish them, or they are being abused in different ways. In schools, how many times have we heard that the teachers, the result of the punishment had resulted in an injury, either physically or mentally. So these public, the parents, teachers, adults in this society also should be educated, and they should cooperate as well when we implement this, because otherwise it's not going to be a success. For that, once this is enacted as a law, I think, Buddhini, that we will have to create awareness among all groups. So I think Fiona, UNICEF hopefully will come on board for us to create awareness amongst everybody. Thank you, Buddhini.
Thanks very much, Madam, for providing that snapshot in a very succinct manner. You did not exceed your time as well, which is great. And well noted. I mean, this is, of course, this is a huge issue that we are facing, corporal punishment against children, and it's been there for a very long time. But we also acknowledge that certain actions need to follow specific protocols, and that is what you explained very well. So as much as we really want things to change at the, flip of, a coin, we can't, and we need to ensure that proper process is followed. So I think that's a really important message for everybody who's working for advocacy, who is actually involved in making sure, civil society included, who's making sure that these things process accordingly. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to turn to Mr. Suhada Gamlat now. And the question is, again, on the fourth pledge, and quite a related question, sir, for you. So there is global evidence that within legal and policy processes, as we heard from Madam Secretary also, legislative changes alone will not be sufficient to ensure that something like a legal ban on corporal punishment, which is very close to the hearts and minds of people, will be a ban of such will be enforced in all settings. We're talking about homes, we're talking about schools, penal institutions, across the board. So this is a huge expectation. So in your view, what are the systemic measures, especially measures that speak to the governance of child protection, might be needed to be in place for this kind of legislative impact, this kind of legislative measure to have an impact?
Thank you for the... Is it working? Yeah, it's working, right. I think the issue at hand at the moment is a very complex issue, as you have recognized, and we are trying to look at it from different angles. And one angle that is now being evolved in dealing with this matter is the development of a legislative framework to deal with the matter comprehensively. And as you all know, there's already certain laws in place for us to address this issue, but it looks like nothing is sufficient to deal with the matter comprehensively and in a holistic manner. Now, I think as a sequel to what the Secretary Justice just now mentioned, the complexity in my understanding lies in the fact today's adult was a child yesterday who had gone through traumatic experience, harassment, violence under different circumstances in a society where these things are tolerated and not addressed adequately because of the social norms, because of the cultural certain demarcations, and so on. So the adult who is asked to now look at the child with the degree of compassion, empathy, and to desist from resorting to violent actions, would never be able to do that so long as the trauma operates in the back of his mind. I think in addressing this very complex issue, we have to focus on the mindsets of our adults, especially those who are institutionally engaged in dealing with children directly, and have a very comprehensive mechanism to address their psychological problems before we come to the point of implementing these laws and expecting the efficacy of that law to be really fruitful for the purpose for which it is introduced. How do we do that? Do we have a mechanism for that? Do we have a counseling process, programs for adults, for teachers, for parents, for people who are, especially priests even, who are dealing directly with the children and who are engaged in developing the child to become an adult in our society? I don't think we have that. So we are all focusing on the matter of developing laws to deal with this matter, bringing in punitive measures, and then to have censuring processes to deal with perpetrators, without realizing the complex problem lies in the fact that there's no social momentum, a culture we have evolved up to now to deal with the mind of an adult who expresses his own anger. Actually, if you really look at it now, there's a psychologist here, where highly eminent people who are well versed on the subject, who would be able to throw some light into the matter, that the adult's mind has to be addressed first. The expression of his own anger, own rancors, own trauma as a child is what you find when it comes for an adult to direct a certain degree of violence towards a child. How do we address that? So long as we don't address that primary factor, we would never be able to implement these laws to the effect that we wish it to be implemented. That's one part of the subject I would like to place before you all, and that has to be actually a collaborative action with the relevant ministries and other institutions, universities, research-oriented persons, and so on, to deal with the adults' problem when it comes for them to be non-violent towards a child. That's a very, very important and a very complex issue as far as I am concerned, because I know it is our own anger, it is our own trauma, it is our own victimization that we always direct towards a child, because child is a vulnerable person, and I can escape by doing it very easily, and I am a person who needs some help, and so long as I don't get that help, in our society, it's a very chauvinistic society. No man would like to go and see a psychiatrist and say, well, I am having this anger problem. I am having this serious problem of not being able to control my emotions. So how do you do that? Unless you do it, unless you address that issue, no amount of laws would ever be able to effectively address this issue of corporal punishment being perpetrated, directed at the child. That's one aspect of it. You have another segment also?
I would like to follow up by asking,
There's another-
yes.
That's all. Have I answered enough? There's another question? No.
I just wanted to understand, in your opinion, like, how likely do you think that all of these things are likely to happen in Sri Lanka in terms of, you spoke about the strong cultural perceptions.
No, what I was trying to bring home is that the laws are okay. There are laws. They are very effective laws, well thought out, and there are a lot of experts put their heads together to develop them. But in a pragmatic sense, this law will never see the fruition of it in that proper sense, so long as we do not address the issue in a holistic manner. So when it comes to a child as a victim, the perpetrator is also a victim. If we do not have a mechanism to address both sides comprehensively in a very harmonious manner, it is a lopsided, it's a kind of a one-sided approach you are having. And that is not going to work. Any number of laws will not be working so long as you don't address the issues of the adult who is the perpetrator, who is also victim in many ways.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, today's adult was yesterday's child. So what you see through the adult is the trauma, it is that anger, it is that violence, economic problems, social problems, and the childhood experiences, and many, many complex problems that come out of an adult when the adult resorts to certain degree of violence against a child. So we have to address both sides. Addressing the child's issue alone by bringing in laws, legislative enactments, and any other mechanism, it's not going to work. It's definitely not going to work. These are all very, 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 I must say, very kind of, well, they're already there, you know. There are hackneyed laws. There are laws which says that you should not be punishing children, you should not be abusing, but it never stops so long as you do not address the issue of the mind of the adult who becomes the perpetrator. So you have to have this balance. I don't know which ministry should be involved in that. I don't know which policies should be brought in to do that balancing process. And if you do not do that, I think we will not see the success of the implementation of these laws. That's my personal view.
Thank you very much.
I have been very introspective about this topic
Yes.
after I saw that.
Yes.
I think it is mostly the adult's problem that should be addressed if you want to see a successful implementation of the law.
Thank you, Mr. Gamblad. I think you really brought home a point which speaks to the normalization of violence in today's society. So intergenerationally, we've had a lot of adults who've been victimized, and then they bring in those experiences to their own child rearing practices. So this social construction of violence, social construction of this very patriarchal kind of approach to looking after children and disciplinary actions of children. So I think it's really, it's something that we need to think about. It was very interesting to hear about the multi-stakeholder kind of mechanism that Madam Secretary here spoke about. So what are those approaches that can be taken through such mechanisms? As you say, it might not be just one ministry's role. Anyway, child protection is not one ministry's role, right? It's not a single discipline. So how do we, as a government, as a governance mechanism, come together to look at these social norms, challenge them, and what is the role of the state and civil society, of course, because we're talking about children who don't live in programs, children live in families, right? So it's really important that we focus on that family strengthening and ensuring that the adults are able to. I think that is what your message is, and that's a really important message. I'm going to hand over to Mihila to take the next section forward.
Thank you, Buddhini. So the next question to the Professor Mura Chandrasena. But this question is not particularly one pledges, it's a cross-cutting within the three pledges. There's a strong scientific evidence that the corporal punishment has harmful effects on the children, both immediate and long-term, impacting their mental, physical health, and their cognitive development. But unfortunately in Sri Lanka, it's remained widely acceptable in Sri Lanka, especially among the parents and the teachers. Professor, we maybe listen to the sentiment most of the time. I am here now because of my teacher or the parent punished me. It's really true, Professor? Then the second question for you, what are the lifelong impact of the corporal punishment, particularly on the adolescent mental health? Over to you, Professor.
So we have to look at this problem at two levels, the top level at the government and the ground level within the schools. So top level, there are so many ministry secretaries, not up to me, so I will talk about the ground level. So recently I got a call from the Kaludara District Zonal Education Office inviting me to come and speak to the counseling teachers. So I work at the Raghav Medical Faculty. I'm a medical specialist in child mental health. I have no business in Kaludara District. Still, my own car, my own petrol, my own time, I go there and speak to these counseling teachers. So my expectation is that during the program, these counseling teachers will come and ask me, I have a child like this in my class who's hyperactive, what should I do? There's a child who's scared because his father is drinking alcohol and abusing him. What should I do? No, none of those questions come. Immediately after the session, all the teachers come and ask about their own children. My child is not getting 80 marks, what should I do? My child is saying he can't go to school, what should I do? As Mr. Sudagahamlat correctly said, it is the adult brain which needs healing first. So, enough about concepts and policies. What should we do? I think the key word is school counselors. So, if you look at the data from the Education Ministry, there are significant amount of allocated school counselors. There are other altruistic teachers who have taken that role without any extra payment, putting that school counselor role in our school. So training school counselors is very important. Why? The first thing is, the World Health Organization says, if you take 100 children, there are 20 children with a significant mental health problem. So if you take a classroom in a school with 40 kids, there are 8 children with a mental health problem. For example, dyslexia. Dyslexia means you cannot read letters properly. Now this class teacher is assessed by the Zonal Education Office every year. Did you teach that letter to this child? No, I couldn't. Next year, when this dyslexic child cannot read the book, the teacher has no other option but to do something that is not ethical. So then this unhealed adult brains from different systems of our system are forced into the teacher who is forceful in the child. So that child is more likely to get hit. Then next to him, there's another child who likes music, who's good at music, but distracted when maths are being told. So that teacher, the Zonal Education Office will ask, did you teach addition to that child? No, he was looking away and distracted. So I had to do this to make him learn maths. So the school counselor, so one would say, okay, let's arrange workshops by child psychiatrists to all school teachers in Sri Lanka. There are only 6 child psychiatrists in this country, including me. That is not possible. But training one teacher from one school, at least with 200 school students, that is possible. So school counselor should go to every school and look at every child in the school at least 15 minutes during the 2-year period and identify these children who are more likely to get punished. That is one thing. Second thing is the importance of the school counselor reducing damage. As you know, Abraham Maslow said the hierarchy of needs. In that hierarchy of needs, the first is the physiological needs. If you have not eaten and if you are thirsty, none of these things we talk doesn't go to the brain. Then you have to feel safe, then you have to feel belong. Due to the 2022 economic crisis, our community has fallen from the belonging level to down, and many people are struggling economically, so the physiological needs are not met. So at homes, fathers, mothers yell, they inflict emotional abuse on children. Child is already traumatized when they come to school. So they are agitated and hypervigilant, hypersensitive. So for that child, the school counselor should at least spend 15 minutes, පුතා වාඩි වෙන්න, මෙන්න මේ හුස්ම ගන්න exercise එක කරමු. I will help you to heal your mind. Obviously, the school counselor can't solve the economic problems at home, but that 15 minutes can change a mind. So the vicious cycle of transgenerational trauma is not transmitted to the next generation. So school counselor is the key word. So about corporal punishment, as a medical doctor, coming back to the theory, research has clearly proven when children are inflicted with corporal punishment, in the long run, there are clear brain cortical changes. For example, They have studied young adults who have been punished as small children. When they scanned their brain, they found clear changes in the hippocampus, which is related to memory, clear changes in amygdala, which is related to feelings and emotions, clear changes in the frontal medial region related to abstract thinking. So you hit the kid to make him write a letter, but actually you are damaging brain areas that are required to learn that letter. So we have to stop this vicious cycle by putting trained school counselors in our school. And corporal punishment is wrong. I'm so happy this legislation was brought, and I'm thankful for all the authorities who did that. But also, we need clear changes in the ground level to make that legislation a reality.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So your statement is very clear and powerful. So the first of the emphasis, how really make sure the existing resources, especially within the school counselors, how they make sure they are part of the children, how they can support the children, create the enabling environment. Again, it's coming to my mind, Madam Secretary's statement yesterday. So again, it's budget, resources, capacity building training. So the budget person with us also, she maybe explained so how really the budget and everything allocated. We are sufficient on that to roll out in the entire country, or whether we are lacking on that part, creating the enabling environment. Then again, very strong message on the corporal punishment. So he mainly maintained a one point, okay, it's not only the legal amendment, how really we want to bring it to the community level. What is the role of the CSO? What is the role of the religious communities? What is the role of the entire community on this process? So it should be well planned with the parallel process of the legal ban in the system. So with that note, I'll give it again to the Buddhini.
Thanks, Mihila. I'm going to turn to Mrs. Sakla Surya now. I think there's a lot of consensus here now about the importance of safety in the school, right? As a primary system where the child spends a lot of time in their lives, the school should provide that safe space, that space to allow that child to grow holistically and develop themselves to their fullest potential. Now, when you find violent practices in that supposedly safe space, there is a problem. So we know that in 2016, a circular was issued by the Education Ministry, which was very clear to a large extent about how corporal punishment should not be inflicted, that corporal punishment should not be, I mean, the message was clear that it should not be, and then what else should be done. So as the Child Protection Authority, which is there to ensure the protection of children across all settings, in your opinion, how do you think this 2016 circular banning corporal punishment in schools should be revised, perhaps thinking of the proposed legal ban that is coming up, and so we can ensure that children are protected from corporal punishment, especially within the school settings? And also, Mrs. Sakla Surya, I wanted to ask about the wider remit of violence here, because as we now understand, violence is normalized, right? And the school is not an entity on its own. There's so many other systems around. So what kind of changes do we need to see in the education system primarily, but thinking about everything else around it, that promotes children's protection?
Thank you, Buddhini. Now, in my opinion, about the education circular that was issued in 2016, circular number 12 of 2016, which was issued under the signature of the Secretary to the Ministry of Education. That circular addresses, it's an internal document, internal circular addressed to the provincial secretaries of education, provincial, zonal, and divisional, divisional directors and principals of government schools and state-approved, government-approved private schools, the principals of those two entities. That circular is addressed. So I'm explaining briefly as to those who don't know about the 2016 circular. It's an education circular. It's the implementation of that circular is limited. It's an internal circular applicable to the government schools issued by the Ministry of Education. The title is Maintaining Discipline in Schools. There, the Secretary emphasizes whose responsibility. He clearly says it's the responsibility lies with the principals of these schools, the teachers, and members of the supporting staff of those entities. That's the government entities. It's by the wording itself, the Secretary narrows it down to the government setting. If you go through the circular, it's 9 years old, 9 and a half, 9 and 3 months, which was issued in April in 2016. It's a very comprehensive circular. It speaks about the importance of, first it speaks about the role of the school in the education system as a social institution. As a social institution, the role and the responsibility of the school in relation to the child's upbringing. Then the responsibility or the need of maintaining discipline. Then it speaks about using corporal punishment and alternative methods of disciplining. It speaks about, it gives alternatives to the people to whom this circular is addressed, to the principals, teachers, and the supporting staffs. What I feel is, all these 9 years, if the education authorities or the principals, teachers, and the staff has taken trouble to read this, grasp it, and to practice it, all these complaints or these sob stories that we read, that we address, would not. It's just a circular. No one had taken enough trouble to read, to have a dialogue, something like a Sangayana or something, a discussion amongst the stakeholders to try to understand what it speaks, because it speaks about alternative methods of disciplining. If you want more elaboration, yes, that circular is copied to a lot of parties, 15 other parties, for their attention. So what I personally believe is this circular is comprehensive. Now, first it speaks about the importance of maintaining discipline in schools, then using corporal punishment, then alternative methods, and the laws that hinders, that prevents using corporal punishment, starting from the Constitution. It gives you legal advice also. You will be violating fundamental rights under the Fundamental Rights chapter in the Constitution, then the penal code sections, and the disciplinary action against E-code, against government officials. It goes into length. Then it speaks about child abuse that will take place, that can happen in schools, and the roles and responsibility of the government officer who is being entrusted in looking after the child during the school hours, their responsibility. All that is there in the circular. So what I feel is that 12 of 2016 circular itself is comprehensive. What is needed is not just having that as a piece of paper, but trying to digest it, read, understand, and practice. Merely because, Buddhini, you asked this question, what I thought was it's good if the circular could expand a bit on It speaks about corporal punishment, but it's good if emotional abuse, emotional or the mental abuse too can be elaborated in that. The circular mentions about emotional abuse, but only in one place only. So, and can make another suggestion as to the particular circular, if it can be expanded to other educational institutions. This is limited to government schools and government-approved private schools. So why not to Pirivenas, religious education institutions? Why not to other private schools or educational settings? There'll be legal barriers for that, because all these circulars are only to the education ministry or the government schools only. But there's a precedence, circular number 20 of 2020. That circular is on drug abuse or preventing children from use of, it's based on the NATA request, National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol, preventing the using of tobacco and alcohol use in schools or promoting it. There's a circular issued by the Ministry of Education that caters to, that covers the international schools, private schools, special education units, and everything, all the institutions that cover that comes under the subject of education. So why not corporal punishment also? So that is in my opinion, these are the two suggestions, apart from that, practicing what's there in the circular. Your next question is, what changes do we need to see the education system that promotes child protection?
Yes.
Education system is just one fraction in the society. As very correctly mentioned by Mr. Gamlat as well as by Dr. Miru, it's the society. The bigger picture, when the child who lives in the bigger society is victimized and walks into the education setting, the child who sees violence, who faces violence at home, day in and day out, walks into the school, and the adult who inflicts violence and who is a victim of violence walks into the school to give services to the child. So it's the violence that we need to address first, violence in the society. If we address that, what I feel is promoting child protection, not only in school settings, but in all settings, will be possible. We can start it by one step. We can start, be the change that you want to make in the society. Start with ourselves, we are adults. If we can start today, now, by resorting to non-violent acts, non-violent words, non-violent thoughts. If we can practice, we can start doing it from now onwards, because we create the society. So, to answer your question at length, what the education needs to do, the answers to all these panelists will be giving will be of use. I have jotted down few key areas that needs to be addressed. Legal and policy framework. Ms. Jinasena just now spoke about the legal reforms, and the policy is already there. National policy on child protection, which has been approved by the cabinet, and it's ready to be rolled out. The action plans have been approved by the cabinet of ministers. So policy and legal framework is available. It's just a matter of working together, collaboration. Then awareness and advocacy. So far, the speakers, the panelists mentioned about it. Teacher training and capacity building. Dr. Chandrasena mentioned about it. Child-friendly school environment. So far, all the panelists mentioned about it. I'm just collecting one by one into the flowers into the garland that we are making. Then monitoring and accountability of all these activities. So these are my suggestions that what we need to do. If we can address these issues collaboratively, we will be able to see the change that we want, not only in the education system, but in the society at large, for all our children protected. Thank you, Buddhini.
Thanks so much, Mrs. Saklasuri. I think that was a very comprehensive answer to my question. And so what I'm hearing is, yes, let's go to the circular first. The circular is good, but so far there has not been a legal mechanism or anything in the law to actually make circulars, the circular itself is not enforceable, legally enforceable. So the weight that it carries has not, the relative weight is not enough, has not been enough to make the required changes in the schools that it caters to. And again, it's really important that you stressed about who it really relates to. We see, yes, of course, the vast majority of schools are government schools, but then there has been significant child protection issues that have come from other schools, other types of schools, and other educational settings. So it's really important that you mentioned that. I think in terms of your response to violence, and I completely agree with you that that's been kind of the emerging theme, like looking at violence through kind of a bioecological perspective, right? Looking at the different ecologies around the child, the systems that are there around the child, how the family, the community, the institutions, the social institutions, as well as the government at policy level, how all these kind of connect together or should be connecting together to enable a protective environment for the child. Yes, so I thank you very much. I think and you pulled together, as you said, a lot of you kind of connected the discussion very well. So thank you very much, Mrs. Saklasuri. I'm going to turn to, I think this is the last question I'm going to ask, which is to Mrs. Chandima Ratnayaka. Mrs. Ratnayaka, now I think this came from Mrs. Saklasuri's response as well, the importance of teacher education, right? Teacher skill development. So developing teacher skills on positive discipline techniques obviously will be key to prevent as well as respond to all kinds of violence in schools, not just corporal punishment. But resonating from what Mr. Suhada Gamlat was saying, and then picked up by the other speakers, about the adult mind and what is really in it and what has been growing in it since childhoods. I think we can all kind of agree that changing attitudes has been the most significant challenge. Not necessarily the knowledge. Knowledge is easy. Skill may be, but attitudes really hard. That is, I think, the general experience in terms of capacity development. So and we know that you are planning so many capacity development work. So how do you think such attitudinal transformation can actually take place within your initiatives? And what kind of values do you really plan to cultivate among the teachers, among the educators, that can actually transform these harmful attitudes that drive punitive disciplinary practices, especially? Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank for the opportunity to participate in this initiative. The Ministry of Education has taken various measures to reduce violence against children. At a World Conference on Violence Against Children held in Colombia in November 2024, Sri Lanka made a commitment to prevent physical and psychological abuse in and around the schools. Under this pledge, we have developed various programs. One of these programs focuses on raising awareness among teachers and principals. To achieve this, we've designed a structured program to synthesize and create awareness among principals and teachers on managing discipline through positive method rather than punitive measures. Under this initiative, with support of UNICEF, we have developed a capacity development package for teachers on positive discipline techniques, which largely focused on sensitization on the consequences of physical and emotional punishment and its legal implications. The package was tested among a group of teachers in the Central Province and received very positive feedbacks. Additionally, we plan to revise the circular discipline in schools that Ms. said, schools to with robust system for monitoring and reporting. Discussions have been held with UNICEF officials and representatives from the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, who are also key stakeholders in implementing these pledges. As part of the second phase, approval has been obtained from the Secretary of Education to establish a national steering committee. We have prepared a 5-year plan to address violence against children in and around the schools, outlining short-term and long-term interventions. With respect to your second place of the questions, the training I mentioned earlier is especially designed to change the teachers' attitudes. It is important to note that any measure to address this deep-rooted social norm requires a multi-sectoral and multi-pronged approach. Therefore, in the effort to sensitize teachers, the Ministry of Education intends to engage with psychiatrists, lawyers, police, child protection authorities, and other relevant officials. To address the attitude and belief of the society, it is important that we work with community and religious leaders to amplify these messages. Specifically, the training package developed for teachers focus on these on the psychological and social background of teachers, encouraging them to reflect on their own experiences with punishment during their childhood, and how those moments impacted their mental state. This reflection helps teachers understand from their own perspective the challenges a child may face when punished. The program also prompts teachers to consider the root causes that lead to misbehavior of students. Furthermore, the training package includes clear information on Sri Lanka's penal code regarding the legal implications of physical and psychological abuse. Additionally, as you know, traditionally parents like teachers who beat to the children. They ask that from the teachers and principals sometimes. To change the attitude of both teachers and the society, we have planned to carry out a campaign through all media, including social media. The program is carefully designed to foster positive attitude teachers toward adopting constructive disciplinary method internally. These are the measures taken by the Ministry of Education to prevent violence against children in schools. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Ms. Chandima. I think that that kind of draws in again, like connects some of the other panelists' responses really well. And I just wanted a very interesting thing you said, like in this capacity building program, that you get teachers to reflect on their own childhoods. And I think like I was part of one of those trainings, and it was really interesting when it actually was rolled out, because when we spoke to them about what their childhood experiences were, and they were rather punitive, but it was very jovial. We people struck us with rods, and like it was fun for them to just reflect. But then when we asked, so do you think this is okay for your own kids, for the children in your, and then suddenly that entire atmosphere changed. Because although they saw like they enjoyed that moment in order to cope, or it could be a coping strategy, I don't know, but when you actually brought them back to the current situation and related it to their own kids and the children that they teach, now they actually saw that difference. So I think it's a really, really effective way. I've seen it myself. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. And also that, again, you're looking at different levels to address this problem. So you're looking at teacher training, which is at the grassroots. You're looking at, and you said you tested it, it was piloted and everything. But you're also looking at the other layers of the government. You're looking at a national action plan, which is great because now there are 2 national action plans on child protection that I'm hearing today. One is focusing on schools, preventing violence against children in schools, and then you have the National Action Plan for Child Protection for the next 5 years. So these seem to kind of, okay, so they are connected, right? Okay, so that's also really great to see, because we are talking about the same thing and we should not be duplicating efforts as well. So that's really great to see. And also the National Steering Committee, because I think it was spoken before, the importance of monitoring, the importance of understanding where you're going wrong, because we have systematically, historically gone wrong in this. So in order to go right from this point, we need that very coherent monitoring system. So thank you very much for those insights. And I now hand over to Mika.
Thank you, Buddhini. So we already reached the 1.5 hour, but I'm seeing the face of Professor Anuradhi for the another 30 minutes. Okay, thank you very much on that. So now the question for Tiona/Lily, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF. Child survivors of violence in Sri Lanka often lack timely, appropriate, and coordinated support. This is from the functional assessment done in 2017. The absence of survivor-centered, age-appropriate, and integrated services can lead to the secondary victimization and further right violation. One of the government pledges focuses on establishing continuum and child-sensitive services for survivors. Tiona, I want to ask you, there's a lot of discussion and the momentum on the continuous and child-sensitive services. What do you mean by that? Then again, my next question to you, it's really important whether we are lacking on this one. The third one, what UNICEF is doing on this pledge. Over to you.
Thank you, Miller. Good afternoon, everyone. I think with this question, Miller is actually moving us from discussing how to prevent some of the forms of violence against children to how to then respond in cases when violence happens. And on the prevention side, I would like to actually add maybe one point to the previous speakers' ideas. It's very easy and it's very common to speak about this intergenerational violence and how we're all victims of it. Doesn't mean that this has to go on forever. This cycle can be broken, and there are some ways to do this. First, and the most important way, is to combine accountability for actions with the idea that we should trust that our teachers, at least some of our teachers or many of our teachers, can actually change. Look, if the teacher who systematically uses corporal punishment, sees no accountability for actions, it's not linked with any administrative action at least, nothing is going to change. If a child abuser walks free and the justice takes many years, this doesn't send a strong signal that the child abuse is actually not acceptable. Of course, accountability through administrative and criminal justice measures is key. And of course, many teachers in many countries have successfully replaced their punitive measures with more constructive and child-friendly ways of disciplining. But they need practice-based training, they need time for this, and they need the Ministry of Education to help them with changing their approaches. And as our representative from the Ministry of Education has said, Sri Lanka has already started demonstrating that in some schools, some pilot locations, this change is possible. We should believe in this, and I believe this is not far from our reach. Just think about it, wearing seat belts. It's, there's evidence suggesting that wearing seat belts reduces the fatality of car accidents. Despite the fact most citizens do not wear seat belts, even in Sri Lanka, when some cars have them, until the legal change is introducing a fine or some other measure, people don't wear seat belts. As simple as that. So let's just use the simple analogy. We need accountability for mistakes. We need accountability for actions as the first deterrent of malpractices. So now, let me move to response, right? So when violence still happens, this can be violence in school settings, violence at homes, in different institutions. We spent days discussing about this. And what do we do then? So for the last 2 days, many speakers have highlighted the importance of multidisciplinary approaches in managing child abuse cases. We all agreed that no entity can address child abuse alone. And really, indeed, multidisciplinary approach has been long accepted as the gold standard in child protection. We all know that. But the question is, how should the multidisciplinary approach be organized to ensure effectiveness, timeliness, and child sensitivity of the overall response to violence? How do we organize this multidisciplinary approach? Because this can be a chaos, or it could be a very well-organized response. So in February this year, in cooperation with the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs, we organized a series of consultations and workshops with practitioners, policymakers, and academics to identify what kind of response to violence Sri Lanka needs. And participants were very clear in their agreement on several key principles. First, response in all its steps should be child-centered. I'm very happy that that was one of the outcomes. Response interventions should start as early as possible once the case is identified or reported to the system. Response should be multidisciplinary, and the response should be continuous, one key person, child protection case manager, following the case from the beginning until the case conclusion. The functional assessment that Mila referred to, done in 2017, of the child protection workforce in Sri Lanka indicates that currently many professionals have some sort of protective role in relation to the child victim of abuse in different moments, but no single professional pursues the case from its identification to its successful resolution. International practice, however, strongly suggests that children benefit from a case manager, from a child protection professional who continuously works with them, allowing time to build trust, confidence, and to ensure an overall positive experience of care and positive, successful outcomes for the child. From the child's perspective, the experience of the child protection system cannot be fully positive if not all its steps are child-friendly. Hence, our focus on the continuum as a key approach and as an established international standard. So the concept of continuum of care has been well established in the medical field, actually, already for years. We borrowed it from the medical field in social sciences and child and social protection. It refers to the practice of providing consistent and coordinated healthcare for a patient over a period of time and across the spectrum of care. Usually, this is built on a professional who ensures the seamless transition of the patient from one type of care to another over time. So continuum of services in child protection is built on a very similar approach. So the continuum of services for child abuse victims means that from the point of identification or reporting of abuse to the system, To the point of restoration of child safety and protection, services should function and transition seamlessly. This continuum spans across 4 main buckets of the child abuse response. First, reporting or identification abuse and case intake. Second, immediate safety, medical and mental health safety and services. Investigation, prosecution, and trial. And medium to long-term welfare, protection, and meeting the child's, and services that meet these needs of child. Yesterday, while we were listening to our distinguished speakers from the UK, Australia, India, Thailand, talking about how systems function there, we were also reflecting that in Sri Lanka too, clinical and institutional case conferences anchored in the health system function quite well. This is one of the strongest components of the system that serve as platforms of multidisciplinary approach. However, this is a moment or a short phase of a multidisciplinary approach. This is not yet a continuum. And this is a very, very important finding of our work in the last couple of months. Our recent analysis indicates that steps leading to this process, from identification of the case leading to the medically hosted case management, case conference process, and the steps that should follow after this process are largely missing or are very weak. So a continuum of child-sensitive services should start at the point of case identification or reporting with a proper police interview and the initial assessment of the child's situation, family strengths and risks, and the social environment by the probation officer as the case manager of child protection response. Then the process will connect to the health system, which already has a strong multidisciplinary approach. And after the health system phase, the process will continue with the probation officer again ensuring placement of children in family alternative care and continuous monitoring of the case. We hear from professionals this long-term monitoring of child safety, well-being is actually missing and is beyond the capacities and the mandate of the health system to do so. And this response includes overseeing child's overall well-being, integration in school, integration with peers, and other outcomes for the child, until the child feels safe and all risks are addressed. In parallel, this continuum of services also includes the criminal justice pillar. Because while we should try the child is protected, is safe, has a shelter, has health needs met, the criminal justice, the accountability pillar is going in parallel. So in parallel, the continuum of services should also ensure that the criminal investigation and trial is child sensitive with improved police interviewing, accelerated review of cases by the Attorney General's Department, and updates in court environment and proceedings, modernization of this process, so that the courts have separate interviewing facilities and the child doesn't face the perpetrator during the trial. Child protection case manager, probation officer in Sri Lanka's case, will be a backbone of this continuum who will follow the case from the beginning to its resolution as a child protection case manager, really connecting all these different bits and pieces of services. With this, I would like to actually commend the government of Sri Lanka and Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs in particular for identifying this continuum and model continuum as one of the priorities and one of the 4 pledges made last November. And since then, we have really worked very closely with the ministry and with the Department of Probation of Child Care Services and all stakeholders in protection and justice sector, and there are many of whom are actually sitting here, at national and provincial levels to design this model of continuum services for abuse victims, specifically tailored to Sri Lanka. Main approach is what? To build on the system elements that already work and to maintain them, to strengthen them, but also, let's be honest, to identify what steps of this process are actually missing or weak, and let's invest in building these steps up. And this is the beginning of the process and the continuation after the medical case conference, as I mentioned. And let's not forget that these steps, building these steps up means not only training of probation officers that everyone thinks about, not only creating referral pathways and case management guidelines. Building the steps up requires financing, because I think we are all very seasoned policymakers and advocates here. We know that no commitment is truly implemented until There is a budget allocated for it very specifically to sort of resource the commitments of the government. And I'm really happy that we have a representative of the Ministry of Finance among us who will give us his vision as well. The next milestone for us will be to launch the first model continuum of services in Kandy in September, with all of you here, I hope, which will pave the way for building a locally coordinated approach at the level of the High Court catchment area. We need to have an administrative unit where this coordination actually takes place in the most tangible forms. And Kandy will serve as the blueprint of such services for the further national rollout. UNICEF stands behind this initiative in all possible ways in terms of financially, and we're happy to have the EU support for this, as well as bringing the best technical expertise to complement these brilliant minds that we already have in Sri Lanka. And we really stand behind the efforts to truly reform the child protection system in Sri Lanka. Let's believe that this reform is possible, the change is possible. We need to just identify the weak points and systematically work to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiana. So now I clearly understand what you mean by the continuum and the child-friendly services. But I reduced my talking because we are out of the time. But 3 questions coming to me. Okay, so then I can continue with my as usual questions. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, madam. Right, thanks. Thanks, Professor. So 3 questions coming to my mind while we are listening to your explanation on the one question for me, when the child reported on sexual violence or the violence coming to the system, who will travel through this child for the entire until the case is resolved? Who is the right officers on that? Then again, second question coming to me, yesterday Professor Aswini explained so much of cases in the backlog. Okay, that's a process, that's an administrative process. Who take care of their needs? Psychosocial support, go visit to their village, make them comfort, who really take care of them? So whether it's happening or not. The third one coming to my mind, how many times did the poor child go into the interview, give their statement to the different people what happened to that? It's really secondary victimization for that child. So with that concept, it's very clear our system need to be transferred into the child-friendly and the continuum services. There should be one officer has to travel with this child until the case reported until the case resolved. So he explained what are the steps already taken into consideration. With that, again, one side she mentioned about the challenges what we are facing. He already gave the solution also. The great launch what we are expecting on the Kandy, model child-friendly continuum services with the leadership of the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs. It will provide an opportunity to reconfirm our commitment together with all of us, again to make sure our system should be child-friendly, continuum, and the holistic in the future. Thanks, Tiana. So with that note, we will move into our probation commissioner. The question for the probation commissioner, I'll change my page. Okay, so the 2019 UNICEF Functional Assessment of Sri Lanka Social Service Workforce highlighted unclear roles, overlapping function, and service gaps as a major barrier to the protection of children. Your department, along with the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, is leading the rollout of 2 key pledges, including the strengthening the social service workforce. As you all know, the child protection officers are the backbone for the country to really deal with the children. They are in the field. So with that, so what these pledges mean, strengthening the social service workforce by 2026, what is entail on that? So what steps have been taken by your ministry and the department to roll out these pledges? Over to you, madam.
Thank you for the timely question, Mr. Mihila. Good afternoon to you all. As you rightly pointed out, there are significant challenges in our child protection system, including unclear roles, overlapping responsibilities and service gaps among child protection officers and the broader social service workforce. These issues often result in delays and inadequacies in delivering timely and appropriate services in children in need. That yesterday also we heard that so many tragic incidents regarding the children also, that every day that we see in the newspapers and that watch news that there are so many tragic incidents, that I would like to draw your attention to a recent and deeply tragic incident, the suicide of a schoolgirl from Kotahena. This heartbreaking case has shaken us all. The young girl, a survivor of sexual abuse by a teacher, had her case reported to the police. However, during the legal proceedings, she was transferred to a new school where the administration was unaware of her traumatic past. Tragically, she later took her own life. I think this incident raises several critical questions. Although the case was reported early on, why was no relevant officers from child protection system assigned to accompany and support the child throughout the process? As Tiona pointed out, that it's a point of from the identification of the that incident. When a case of child abuse is reported, who is responsible for ensuring continuous support and follow-up until the case is resolved? Why were no additional child protection services provided during this period? Could timely psychological support have prevented this tragic outcome? I believe we all agree that this case underscores the urgent need for clear role identification among our social service professionals, particularly probation officers, child right promotion officers, and national child protection officers, to ensure coordinated and timely interventions for vulnerable children. Then you also that we are also facing that so many challenges that implementing social service workforce in Sri Lanka. Then one thing is that severe shortage in human resource across all cadres. That yesterday our secretary to the justice also mentioned that justice sector also that they are facing the cadre issues. In child protection sector also that we also facing card issues. In the child protection system, that no card allocation for popular wise. That we know that health sector, that card allocation as per the population wise. That in child protection sector, that we don't have that type of system. Then also that limited budget allocation, especially for that field visit, that telephone allowances. We are struggling. Our officers always that request in us, that our secretary madam also know about it, that we don't have enough budget allocation to, and then other government, according to the government rules and regulations, that we can't give them that proper travel allowances and telephone allowances. Then the next one is lack of card advancement opportunities. Then in child protection system, there is no proper promotion pathways for all the officers. Then we all know child care, that child care and child care service. This is the devolved subject. Then national government and provincial government also, that there are that so many officers under national government and provincial government also. Then it's very difficult to coordinate among all the officials. Then other one is this minimal social recognition and professional support. Then child protection service, it's not considered as an essential service. That health sector, it's considered as an essential service. Then can we think that there are no other any incidents happen to children until Friday 4:30 to Monday 8:30? Then there's no officers in the offices. Then during weekends also. Then only that helpline, only that police, and then under National Child Protection Authority, there are that two helplines. We all know about it. Then next question, you asked about what are the pledges that to our pledges for the strengthening the social service workforce by 2026. Then to address this challenge, we have committed to 3 key areas of reform. There are the 3 areas that one is functional analysis, second one is protocols and capacity buildings, third one is institutionalization of training. When we talk about functional analysis, we conduct a comprehensive review to clarify the roles and responsibilities of the social service workforce in responding to violence against children. The second one, protocols and capacity building, develop standard violence response protocols and implement training programs aiming to complete training for all relevant professionals by the end of 2026. Institutionalization of training, integrate this training program into the ministry's existing human resource development plans to ensure sustainability. That after signing the agreement in Colombia in 2024, that we identified 3 priority areas to strengthening the social service workforce. That's one priority area is the role clarification. Our first focus is on defining and validating the roles of probation officers, national child protection officers, and child right promotion officers. In collaboration with UNICEF, we have conducted bilateral meetings, focus group discussions, scoping missions in 3 provinces, and a detailed analysis of job description and scopes of responsibility. These findings were presented last week to key stakeholders, and we reached a board consensus. The next step is to present these findings to the special committee appointed by the Ministry of Women, which will lead to the finalization of clear and distinct job descriptions. The Ministry of Women and Child Affairs also appointed a committee to clarify these officers, demarcate and clarify the child right promotion officers and child protection officers' role clearly. Additionally, we have developing violence response case management guidelines, which will be rolled out later this year. As agreed, probation officers will serve as case managers for violence response cases coordinated with other child protection officers. This will ensure that survivors receive continuous support from the beginning to the close of their cases, preventing tragedies like that previously I mentioned about that Kotahena incident. Priority area 2, core competencies. We are currently identifying the essential education, skills and attitudes required for each role within the workforce. Discussions are underway to define the core competencies, which will inform future training and professional development framework. Priority area number 3 is career advancement and recognition. We are examining current promotion and recognition mechanism to identify systematic gaps. Our goal is to develop reforms that align career profession with expertise, experience, and contributions, thereby enhancing the professional standing of the workforce. Finally, We are in the process of developing a comprehensive strategic framework for the social service workforce, which technical support from the UNICEF. This framework will guide the long-term development and strengthening of the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for the detailed explanation and very clear explanation how you all are roll outing this, strengthening the social service workforce. Just to summarize, the one thing, social service workforce are the very important aspect of the entire child protection program. They are really dealing with wealth of this country. Wealth is the children, so they are dealing with the wealth of the country. So it's very important, their roles and the responsibility clearly articulated, clear for everyone. So here we are, madam correctly said, we are not telling some are higher position, some are not lower position. We want to much more clear what their different role. It will help us to coordinate and working together. That's the one perspective. The initiative already taken by the ministry and department highly appreciated on that part. Then again, she raised the practical questions. Okay, you all are telling social workers should be the 24 hours and the 7 days, whether we have the relevant resource allocation for that. Only the transport allowance, 2,000 rupees, I don't know what's the amount, so for example, 2,000 rupees. How one person in the Trincomalee town to visit to the end of the Trincomalee division. So that's all the questions. Then again, whether we really have the career path. Okay, I'm started with the child protection officer, whether I can go to the child probation commissioner after 35 years services. So whether we have a very clear path on that or not. So that's again, and again the recognition. So sometimes they are putting their money, they are using their own resources for the field visit. Some even, they told, okay, 5:30 finish Friday, but they are working on the Saturday, Sunday also. What is the recognition for them? So these are the couple of questions, but he clearly articulate that something is progressing on the mandate and the competency framework and the development of the strategy for the strengthening social service workforce. It's a good start. We strongly believe it will continue with the collaboration with all the department. It will give some sort of a very clarified roles on the social works for the betterment of the children of this country. So with that note, we'll come to our final panelist. I think I don't want to ask the question because so much of question already raised. I think Madam Secretary also yesterday raised. So where we are on this budget allocation, we are talking about a very good, wonderful plan for the country. So end of the day, that particular plan allocated with the sufficient resources or not, then how they can fulfill their jobs. So there's so much of aspect on that. So we are eager to hear your views also. Yeah, so for the child protection sector. So my question to you, so I'll directly go to the question. I don't want the background of that. So how does the Ministry of Finance coordinate with child protection agencies to ensure budget allocation aligned with national child protection strategies? You maybe hear all the issues and what we want to move into that. The second part, are there mechanisms in place to track and evaluate the effectiveness of child protection spending? The third question, I'm sorry, I'm asking the third question also. What are the innovative financing models, such as research-based budgeting or social impact bonds for the child protection that Sri Lanka can consider? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Hello. All right. Thank you very much, Mila, for your valid questions. And good afternoon, everyone. If I look at your question in broad, I mean in broader sense, the government expenditure for child protection and care is substantial, really. It is, and our approach is also span over the life of the child, right? If I say that piece of the legislative framework identify a children or child as anyone who is under age of 18. But government commitments, government responsibility towards a child start before that and ending or continuous after the year 18 as well, right? If we check first, the very first, during the pregnancy of the mother, the government take the responsibility. If I name a few of programs we conduct, the malnutrition, the nutritional food package program conducted by the government, we are giving, the government provides 4,500 worth of monthly nutritional food package during the period of pregnancy as well as after the childbirth. And then when we go forward, we give some sort of vaccination, maternal and child vaccination program, and the public health midwives. There are 9,000 public health midwives around the country visiting homes, and they detect and prevent the early health complications of child and the mother. And when we move forward to next stage, early child care development, we invest a lot in the child and the teachers and the training and development also. If I name a few again, see the meal program, the preschool meal program, we invest a lot of money for the program, and such as the teachers' allowances. Going forward, preschool education, you know, I think all of you may know the Sri Lanka is one of the countries in the world provides preschool from grade 1 to through university, right? I don't want to mention all the lists of the program conducted, but if we take as a whole the total budget of this all program conducted for child protection and care is about 125 billion. We spend for child protection and care, except for the health and education, general education. It's just below 0.5% of GDP of the country. And if we move forward, our institutional framework, it is multi-layered. We have our secretary here, madam, from which we formulate policies and conducted oversight function at the ministry level. We have here probation commissioner as well. Next layer is probation department, child care and probation department. It is also dual subject. We invest money from the central government as well as the provincial government for probation and care services. And then for protection, we have National Child Protection Authority. Altogether, total investment for all those entities, all those institutions from the budget is about just say 15,000 million rupees for the year 2025. 15,000 million rupees. If I divide it to all three institutions, for child development, 13,500 million rupees are allocated for the ministry, and 580 million rupees have been allocated to the probation and child care department, and again 570 million has been allocated to the Child Care Protection Authority. That is the whole picture of the government expenditure and investment of child protection and care. But if I take your question in precisely, the coordination with the ministries and the departments and other stakeholders, the process start from the budget process, you know. Now we have started the budget process for the year 2026 with the issuance of our budget called circular on 30th June. We have started the process. The department, ministry and the departments all sent their financial requests to the treasury, and we reviewed their proposals and with the national policy framework. If they align with the national policy framework, we allocated money through the national budget. But what I should mention here is our resource envelope, you know, fiscal space, really limited. We are a country went into crisis before just 3 years ago, right? Therefore, we had to go to EFF facility from the IMF, and therefore we had to have some commitments towards the EFF program. you know, what we can spend for a year is only just 13% of GDP. It's about, say, 13% of GDP for the expenditure, our primary expenditure. It's about only 4,500 billion rupees. From this, we have to have all things done. Education, salaries, pension, and everything. That is challenging, really challenging. And however, we take the child protection and care and education, health, everything as important and manage at our level best at the budget. And moving forward to your next question about the system, any mechanism in place to identify the child expenditure. Short answer is we don't have. We don't have such a mechanism in Sri Lanka, but several countries, including India, next our neighbor, they have a system called child budget estimate, and Philippines is the best example. Philippines, they have a good system to track expenditure. It's called child focused budget tracking system. But we have taken several steps towards SDG tracking, climate tagging, and therefore we have some experience. Therefore, we can learn from neighbor countries and all around the world. How do we track our child-centric budget? We have input-based mechanism to track, but it is not on outcome basis. If you don't know the outcome, we can't allocate resources efficiently, you know. Therefore, it is really essential to have a system to identify a child-centric budget and identify the outcome, whether we have achieved our targets. It is really important. Now we are collaborating with our funding agencies and multinational agencies to look at the possibilities or explore possibilities to have a mechanism, scientific system to identify child-centric budget, at least for some area, early child care development part or as a pilot step. Therefore, it is also really essential to have sort of innovative finance. Your next question. Then the coordination, if I take the coordination in other way, our evaluation system. Our evaluation system is somewhat strong, Mula. If you take the ministry is the focal point. The secretary conducts some meetings, regular intervals, a meeting called AMC, you know, Audit and Management Committee meeting. They review the progress of action plan, implemented action plan. And the National Budget Department also, we conduct several meetings, and when we give recommendation to issue cash to the ministry, maybe to the department, maybe we have sort of monitoring mechanism. Before we give a recommendation to the Department of Treasury Operation to issue cash, we have kind of review mechanism. After that, after taking some analysis only, we give recommendations to the ministry and the department and the National Child Protection Authority. And therefore, our evaluation mechanism, and I should mention here that the role played by the Auditor General here, the oversight function, that is independent role, is playing a critical role, and even it is not limited to that. Even from the Parliament, we have some sort of oversight mechanism there. These agencies should report to the Parliament. For the subcommittees like COPA and COP, they conduct review meeting regularly after they receive the reports from the Auditor General. Therefore, the evaluation mechanism somewhat strong, but we should have to have sort of budget tracking system. Your next question is the innovative financing mechanism. Yes, it is really important, Amila, because government itself and solely cannot take this responsibility. You know, that budget is huge. Once I said it's substantial, but still we are managing in our level best. But if you can have some sort of mechanism, RBB like results-based budgeting, we can sell the product to the private sector. if we can request or invite the private sector to come and invest in some sectors, like, say, child rehabilitation is a good example. There are some countries who are issuing social impact bonds on rehabilitation, child rehabilitation, and even private-public partnerships we can think of. But the thing is, we don't have set the tone and the environment to invite the private sector. Therefore, things need to be done in our side. If you take the finally, Guyanese, my colleague's question, she said there are some sort of budget constraints. Yes, that is correct. There are. But you know, we have, as a national perspective, we have about 1.5 million workforce altogether. If we take a decision, it relevant to all the public officials. We don't take decisions to one sector of the society. That is the main issue. If we take that travel-in or telephone decision, other officials, there are so many officials work in the field, they also will come. How can we manage with that space, fiscal space? That is struggle. We also like to spend money. We also like to give if our envelope is adequate enough, I say. Therefore, it should take as a holistic view, not from the point of one particular sector, you know. That is my explanation regarding this, regarding my colleague's request. And still, that there is a huge issue in the workforce, you know. From 2020 onwards, we stopped recruiting people to the government. Why? We went into trouble. With the crisis, we went into trouble, stopped the recruitment, and we took several strategies even to reduce our workforce. We got the results of that as well. Therefore, now, anyway, government has given a green light to recruit workforce to the necessary or required field. Therefore, it will be resolved soon. I guess it will be resolved within just a couple of months period. In that sense, we can give a hand to the sector, the child protection and care. But that particular incidents-wise, allowances and all, it should look at in holistic view. That is my way of taking your point. Thank you. Thank you, Mila. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for a very clear explanation how the budget allocated, what is the evaluation method. Especially, I'm very much interested on the new modeling of new financing modeling also, all these aspects. I don't have much question on that, but I'm thinking based on all the panelists' answer, you may be now converted into the child protection sector. I think, yeah, in the future you may be given more, even you get the request from all the sector, you may be given a much more priority for the child protection sector. Then again, the Madam Secretary also with us with the much more experience on the budget, and yeah, because that's coming in again and again. Even the Madam Secretary Justice also, okay, yesterday, okay, we knew the challenge. We really knew the challenge. We really want to make the changes in that particular thing, it should be changed. The enabling environment should be changed. So that is the fundamental. With that note, we will conclude the first round of the questions. We can go for the audience. Okay, I'll give the floor to the Buddhini for the audience. Yeah, Buddhini, out to you.
Thanks, Mila. But I do wonder how long we have for this. 15, 20 minutes? Okay. Right, thank you, Professor. Okay, so, yeah. Two, yeah, sure. First of all, I'd like to thank every panelist who came on board with us, took a lot of time and effort to explain in detail, give detailed responses about some very tricky questions, because we all work in a very resource-tight environment. And I could see everybody's, a lot of people's responses kind of like targeting towards that side, because everything is dependent on budget, everything is dependent on resources. So we all, it was, to me, it was a reflection of ground realities, but also an acknowledgement of, real acknowledgement of what are the things that we need to look at together in order to resolve these problems. And that is really important, rather than living in an ideal state where, we're not really thinking about what's practically possible and what's practically, what we can actually focus on in the short and medium term as well. So with that, I'd like to open for questions, any questions that the audience might have. As Professor Anuruddhi said, we have about 15 minutes. Yes, Dr. Hemamal is raising his hand.
Yeah, I have two questions, or rather, maybe observations, and I know the Secretary Justice, Ministry of Justice can comment. One is actually, now there is a call to increase the numbers of video conferencing, rather video recording places, one for each province. Now that is probably based on a cabinet paper, or as we were told. But cabinet, of course, decides based on the information that the ministry or the entity provides. Now we know that honestly, in reality, the recording is not very useful, because the child can be cross-examined, and child will be cross-examined. The purpose of recording was to ensure that the child will not be will not have to divulge this again, so that the child can have closure, etc. So from what is happening currently, to me, I don't think there's any use of that recording if the child can be cross-examined, and that happens after 6 years. Now, also we learned in a recent training program of the Attorney General's Department that some judges don't even let the child listen to her own recording, which took place 6 years ago, and the defense lawyer cross-examines on something that she had told on record 6 years ago. Case fails, full stop. So therefore, whether there's a use of increasing the recording facilities until this issue is sorted by the ministry, whether there's a way of sorting it is my question. Number two, now there are, it takes 6 years, 8 years, there were numbers 14 years to complete the case. And now this increase in time came after the direct indictment, procedure started. Originally, as you will recall, in the case of, child abuse, first there was a preliminary inquiry in the magistrate's court, and after that, the magistrate's court, depending on the decision of the magistrate court only, the files were sent for to the Attorney General's Department. Not all files went up. Most of the things will say the love affairs, certain things that would not be, would not continue, actually stopped at the magistrate's courts. And during, if there was not adequate evidence to pursue a court in High Court, it stopped at that. Now every case is going to the High Court, and it's one reason for the delays. So is there a way, do you think it's looking again at the method, whether certain cases, especially we'll say love affairs among teenagers, we'll say such types of cases, what is often referred to as Romeo-Juliet cases, whether there's a way of those being settled at the magistrate's court level, so that you don't waste the time of the Attorney General's Department and the courts. And also it will hopefully lead to a reduction of the time period of these cases. So those are, I know whether they are questions or observations, so I thought I should communicate that to you. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, would you sorry, is there a related question? Yes. Is it related to what Dr. Hemamal was? No. Is it related?
Me also know. If I remember few years back, there was a UNICEF project. Dr. Hemamal, you may remember. We were also, Gampa was also part and parcel of that. And within 3 years, the conclusion, at least the high courts, and then there was this fast track type of a thing, which really worked. But as a professional, and then police also came and got the MLRs from us very quickly, and then we got we were asked to go to the courts also very quickly, and because these days I'm doing that research on SCB, I see that effect. Now, when the money was there with the UNICEF project, it worked. When the project stopped, whole thing back to square one. So this, what I call mushroom project in this country, investments has to go for the improvements. It can start with the projects, but then how to internalize it, that type of good things through the Ministry of Health, then Ministry of Justice. Because at the end of the day, as a forensic medicine experts, as doctors, when we go to the courts after 10 years, people are cursing us, but they still wanted the justice. And all of us in my own way, I'm telling this, මං කියනවා අපි ඔක්කොමලම අපාය යනවා මේ වෙන පරක්කුව හින්දා. So maybe I'm a little bit passionate about this part. This can be, I have a feeling if we tackle it correctly, because for instance, you were saying a lot of the budget, and as a university, we produce graduate, and I know for a family, there are about 10 or 15 officers are there. But still, when it comes to the grassroots level, people, the service is not given. There's something wrong somewhere. All the time we are asking this, that, and so forth. Is it the education? I am a university teacher. Are we training people to go and sit in the office and people to come to you, but their designation is that? So I was very happy to see that that the ministry finally, you all have put down the duty list. So please, as a forensic person, please put that duty part to go to their home. That's the part of the job they are taking. If not, go to the private sector. So that type of maybe stringent things need to come. It comes with attitude. So one question is about the, for Ayesha, about the good projects which were there, which we saw results. How to revive those practices. Next thing is to ministries with the finance, where, like other countries, where your job is with the performance-based, not a permanent. I know it's a very conceptual kind of a thing I'm talking about. Isn't it a way forward about the managing money?
Thank you, Sanuruddhi. Madam Secretary, I think you have 3 areas of responses that's expected.
Yes, I think more than my current role as the Secretary to the Justice, all those 3 questions seems to relate to my role, my former role as a prosecutor and as a former officer of the Attorney General's Department. With that experience and my acquired knowledge, I can tell you this. Dr. Hemal, your first question was the usefulness of the statements recorded from the victims who are children, whether that it is fair or whether the statement so recorded is of any use if they are subjected to cross-examination. Well, that is an issue that whenever I prosecuted, I also had, because I have seen personally how the children suffer under cross-examination. But let me tell you this. There is a charge against the accused which has to be proved by the prosecution beyond reasonable doubt. The fact that the child is below 18 years and is vulnerable will not relieve the prosecution of its burden. Now, how do you ascertain whether a child is speaking the truth or otherwise? In our system, the criminal justice system, therefore, unless the defense accepts, there are admissions that are made in terms of Section 420 of the Code of Criminal Procedure Act, they will cross-examine our witnesses. So child is also included in that. But there is, under Section 163A of the Evidence Ordinance, under which this provision has been brought in, I see there is a way out. That happened in the Kaluthara case, the very first case that was tried. The section says that if the child goes back on her or his evidence, the statement, if there is independent evidence before court that satisfies court, then notwithstanding those contradictions that have been pointed out in court by the defense, the judge is at the liberty, has the discretion to accept that original video recorded evidence and convict the accused. So that happened, Dr. Hemal, as I remember, in the Kaluthara case, and I don't think that it was overturned by the appellate courts. So that is to ascertain the testimonial trustworthiness of the witness, that they are subjected to cross-examination. Because I also must say, with all due respect to children, that although that we love to think that children do not lie, we have come across situations where they are being coached and they have lied. So when an accused is there in the box, for different reasons the charges can be leveled. So in the interest of justice, therefore the procedures should be adhered to. But of course, I also must say, if a counsel is going to be tough on the child in cross-examination, the learned judge who is here, the trial judge who is here in the case, must gain control over the proceedings. You can't intimidate children. As you very correctly pointed out, in our systems, sometimes there is a delay in taking up the prosecutions, the cases. So the child might forget. That leads to your second question that you asked me. The two schools of thought that we have in our system, where one school of thought thinks that the statement, the audio, the video recording, the interview, that is made between the child and an adult at the very outset of the investigation or the proceedings should not be shown to the witness. In her presence, it should not be shown. The other school of thought is that it can be shown. Now, if there is, I admit that there is a delay sometimes in certain cases. This relates to your question as well, Anuruddhi. There are two cases that come to my mind where I have prosecuted. One thing is Seya Sadevmani's case, the rape and murder. Less than 6 months' time that we prosecuted, and he was convicted on all the charges. The other one is Chaturya's case. Professor Aswini Fernando is not here. A Chaturya's case where I prosecuted once again, less than, I think, 9 months' time that we concluded the case. So it depends on your commitment and also the workload of court and other factors as well, availability of court, where sometimes if it is online, audio visual, we have to get down the devices from the Victim and Witness Protection Authority, which fact now the Ministry of Justice is going to address. So I have that good news for you. So you ask, Anuruddhi, about the UNICEF project. Yes, when it started, I was part of that. We went right around the country educating the police officers. And then only that they started at that time the women's and children's desks, and they had their rooms prepared. We visited everywhere. We educated them. And it went on very well. We had the pilot project where when the first information was sent to the department, we allocated a supervising officer of that province and also a junior officer. But as you say, it didn't work after the project ended. So those files were opened in yellow color, and in court, we sent it in yellow color as well so that the judges could track it out. The issue there, as I see, is the sustainability. So that I see in most of the projects that where we are being assisted by these organizations. So in the Ministry of Justice, whenever we have the donors assisting us, what I tell them is that we have to look at the sustainability of the project, because there is no point in they giving us what we want and we not continuing. So I think we must have plans once the project is introduced, and then there will be continuity. So with regard to the, once again related to your issue, the Ministry of Justice is now looking at and making plans, most probably in the course of this year, from the money that is allocated to us by the National Coffer. We are going to give the magistrate courts, the district courts, and also the high courts, the screens and the audio visual, the devices, because the two laws are now in place. One thing is Act number 7 of 2025, where you don't have to bring the accused and the suspects physically to court to take part in proceedings, and witnesses can testify from a distant place. Then the Victim and Witness Protection Act brought in 2023 also has the facility where that when there is a request made, that they facilitate, and even from abroad, evidence can be given. Same provisions are there in 7/2025 as well. With regard to the civil matters, that's why we are giving it to the district court. The law is in the pipeline. It will be something akin to 7 of 2025, where the witnesses can testify from a distant location. So we are making progress, and that's why I said that there is a ray of hope we can, for a better and a beautiful future. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I think in the interest of time, there is, oh,
Madam also want to say.
yes, there is,
There is another question by Professor Anuruddhi with regard to the whether we reach out the expected outcome even though we have allocated significant amount of money in relation to the well-being of the children. Actually, it's a open question as the former officer served in the General Treasury. We are running out with limited budget. With that, as the Mr. Sudarshana said, significant amount is allocated for the well-being of the children, mainly for education, their and violence against children and all that. Taking into account only our ministry, there are 6 number of field officers are assigned in the divisional secretariat, but we are now thinking about whether they are giving the service, they are giving the expected service to the children. We are thinking about that our ministry, now we are in the process of redefine their role and responsibilities as UNICEF done. We are doing another assignment. Our expectation is they need to go to doorstep, without waiting, reporting to their located office. That is the one reason. And also, from the official side, there are some issues. They have commonly they call development officers. But in case officials assigned to the children-related matters, we need to think they specifically from among others, because of some of them are following the specific diploma courses, and we are thinking do they know have some specific field knowledge in counseling, child rights and all that. My opinion is that we need to separate them as the departmental service, not the transferable service to once they get once they get the expertise knowledge in that field, we must keep them within the similar service. Then for that we need promotional ladder for them. In the existing one, there is no promotional ladder for them. There is unrest among them, according to that. And some officials, their divisional secretariat is different demarcations. They need to go far away, some places, to difficult to reach places, and they need to, because of we need to think them differently from the other field officers. The current government procedure is treating all similarly. Therefore, within the 2026 budget, we made some proposal to the Department of Ministry of Finance, seeking some special provision for us to retain the service and promote them. Otherwise, if we spend more to address their unrest, we can reduce more more than twice of the social cost of the violence on the children, I think so. Because of that, I personally request from the Ministry of Finance, please positively consider this as we need one of the key policy commitment of the government is that to build safer and violence-free society for every children in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. I think we can have one last question because I know Shiromi's been there for a while trying to raise her hand. Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm Shiromi Samarakon. I'm working in the area of online safety and digital well-being. But today, for the interest of this Bogota Pledge and related concerns, I have two questions about corporal punishment, as well as I have one question relating to my pet area, which is about online safety. So I would like to ask for much of a practical approach towards corporal punishments when it goes to the school setup. I see teachers, we have to look at this issue from the teacher's angle as well. I have been to schools and I have realized the fact that it is so much difficult sometimes to control, to get the attention of the children and all. And this can be much of a subjective opinion, but I have seen most of the teachers nowadays saying that children are becoming much more aggressive and we don't know how to control the children and they are becoming loud, noisy and all. So sometimes teachers are scared of advising or controlling children as well. So I would like to ask for how we can maybe kind of entry points for teachers to support controlling or getting the attention of children. That is my first question. And my second question is more about, I have worked with most of the school counselors, and I noticed that most of the school counselors do not have required, standards, as well as I have spoken to children, where children say that we don't want to bring about our issues to the school counselors because they don't have any, confidentiality or else as that understanding. So these are matters for most of the students. So probably I would like to raise these questions to Professor Mirdul to ask for what kind of minimal standards or models should we adopt for effective counselor integration in the schools. My third question is, you can disregard if it is not relevant to Bogota Pledge, but I also would like to ask maybe from the Secretary Madam from the Women's Ministry, what kind of plans do you have to have a national mechanism in terms of protecting children in online environments? Because I see, of course, we are talking about the offline environments, but at the same time, I see these are much more interrelated. And I see sometimes teachers say that children become much more vulnerable and much more aggressive because of the bad usage of the internet. So what kind of plans do you have for a national mechanism? Thank you.
Thanks, Shiromi. I think the first question relating to teacher support for classroom management, would you like to take that question, Ms. Chandima?
So hello. I think it's a very good question. As we know, in the classrooms, we can see so many children, that mean nearly 55 some schools. Then under the education reforms, we suggested to limit it to 30 or 35 students. And in our teacher training programs, we suggest to teachers relaxation and teachers environment also, define those things. And then I think under the reforms we can get any solution for that. The second question is about the teacher counselors. As you say, we can see some critical situation about the teacher counselors. We also noticed that one. We have only 1,895 counseling teachers. That schools are 10,000, more than 10,000. Now we are going to recruit more counseling teachers, and we have a very good, very planned program for the counseling teachers. As a we collaborate with some organizations. We started a pilot project for 5 provinces, and under that pilot project, we prepared some guidelines, teacher training modules, and the teachers' duty list, and the proper year plan to implement it in the schools. Then we circulate that in this year. These all things that pilot projects ended this October. After that, I think it's delivered to, we are going to train all the counseling teachers in the island-wide. I think after 20 years, we came a very good position in counseling, school counseling system. Then the main thing is the maintaining the documents and the secret documents, how to maintain this one, and how to use the counseling techniques. The teachers, they have also some question about that. Now we are finding solution for that, and yesterday also we got a stakeholder meeting. They all are participate there. How to refer a student to out of the school to get more help from them. What's the clear procedure? Yesterday we got very good decisions with these stakeholders. I think now in future we can get good decision for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Chandima. Would you like to take the last question? Yes, madam.
With regard to question on our side, you mentioned that what are the national program preventing children from violence from our end, especially online violence. Actually, as a Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, we can't act alone. It's a, we are doing all the things with an integrated approach. There are 13 main ministries involved with us, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Public Security, Ministry of Justice, and all that. With that, recently, we have taken a good initiative to form a multi-sectoral mechanism to avoiding abuse and violence, all form of violence against children. We are going to have it's approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, and we get approval to form a national standing steering committee with the inclusion of all the relevant stakeholder institutions. With that, one of the main focus is how to reduce or we think it is very difficult to eradicate all the violence. We are reducing all the violence against children, and at the first meeting, we are taking this point to discuss, and we are going to, the committee have authority to take some sort of decision, and sometimes maybe recommendations. In regard to recommendation, we are going to forward our recommendation to the Cabinet of Ministers for their policy decisions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Would you like, Professor?
Thank you for that important question. If we set a certain professional standard, we are going to miss many altruistic, keen counselors in our school system. So about the school counselors, actually many are not requesting telephone charges. They are not requesting recognition from the government. They are requesting a time to go to the class and talk to a child in a confidential space. Why is it not provided? Because there's a curriculum full of facts and lack of concepts where children does not have a time to go to the counseling room. So we have met the Ministry of Education from the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists. We have given clear instructions, ban homework amongst school children in Sri Lanka. We have done it so many times over the last decade, to be factual. So, but the thing is that our curriculum is heavily dependent on factual content rather than conceptual competency-based framework. So the counseling teacher is mostly neglected and chased away by the class teacher. You don't have space here. I have so much to teach to this child. And everybody knows within a 40-minute period for a 10-year-old how much facts we can teach. It is not possible. The curriculum is too vast, so we have to, in the coming educational reforms, we have to consider that fact. About the disciplinary strategies in the classroom, I must say, whenever we conduct school teacher trainings, I have found that teachers are so keen to learn these methods. They always say, I'm so happy that you told me this, we can change, and they change. So the education ministry just have to remove some content from the curriculum and give us space to teach them.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think with that we can wrap up the Q&A. So I hand over to Meera.
Thank you, Buddhini. So shall I start from here, then I'll finish from here also. That's good. So we now come to the conclusion of our panel discussion. It's not end, it's a great start. That's what I want to tell you all. So the big congratulations for the organization committee to bring all these eminent technical people into one stage. It's promising. It's the power of collaboration. I think we all now crystal clear on the government pledges on violence against children. What is the progress so far achieved within 8-month period of time? Progress is promising, and we are going on the right track, even though we are facing so many challenges. Leadership, ownership, coordination, and sufficient resources allocation are the key important to continue this hard work. It's very promising after we listen to each panelist, and it's feasible. We cannot allow any more child abuse and any more violence against children in the country. It's all our responsibility to make sure our children are living in a caring, loving, nurturing environment. I'm really thanking the opportunity to thank our eminent panelists and my colleagues Buddhini for their greater technical contribution and agreement to work on the government pledges. Our hearts are always with every children. Thanks a lot for such commitment. With that note, I'm concluding our panel discussion. Thank you very much for all. So I'm kindly ask all the panelists to stay here. There's some token of appreciation from the organizers. Thank you very much. Yeah, sure, please.
Thank you. And thank you all the panelists and the moderators for that fruitful discussion. And I now invite Professor Anuruddhi Edirisinghe, the chair and chair of the conference and the director of the Center for Gender Studies, University of Kelaniya, and Ms. Preeti Noka Ranasinghe, the chairman and NCPA, to deliver the tokens of appreciation. First, Ms. Ayesha Jinesena, President's Council, Secretary, Ministry of Justice. Ms. KDR Olga, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child's Affairs. Ms. Tiona Ashlanaswilai, Chief Child Protection, UNICEF, Sri Lanka. Mrs. Preetika Sakalasuriya, Director Legal, National Child Protection Authority. Mr. Suhada Gamlat, Chairperson, National Victim and Witness Protection Authority. Mrs. Gayani Vijay Singha, National Commissioner, Department of Probation. Mrs. Chandima Ratnayaka, Deputy Director of Education from Core Curricular Branch, Ministry of Education, Higher Education and Vocational Education. Professor Muru Chandradasa, Professor in Psychiatry, Faculty of Medicine, University of Kelaniya. Mr. Sudarshana Dizilva, Director, National Budget Department, Ministry of Finance. And it's time to appreciate our two moderators for the afternoon session. Mr. Mihilar Muhammad Abdul Malik, Child Protection Officer, UNICEF, Sri Lanka. And finally, Mrs. Buddhini Vithana, Senior Technical Advisor, Child Protection and Child Rights, Save the Children, Sri Lanka.